I often wonder how celebrities feel about their lives being under such a microscope, everything being scrutinized, people knowing everything about them or wanting to know absolutely every single thing that they think or do. And today I want to talk about what I think is the blessing and curse of being famous. Welcome to the Kia Kelly podcast, because that's me. Every single week, we will be here talking about business, marketing your business, as well as life and anything that can throw at us. Because one thing I know is that when I've been building my business, I am involved in my business. And so I like to help people understand what it all is going to take to build a successful business and have a balanced life. And so here on the podcast, some of the days you're going to absolutely love me. And then other days, you're going to want to throw me away with the trash because you don't want to be bothered with me. But either way, you're going to get your whole life together when you're here on this podcast. So I encourage you to grab your tea and grab your coffee because the Kia Kelly podcast is here. So welcome back to another episode of the Kia Kelly podcast. I am excited to talk to you today about this particular topic. Now, this is something that I have talked about privately for quite some time to people. You know, me and my friends talk about these different things, and these are just thoughts that I just have myself, and I wanted to have them with you. And one of the reasons why this is a topic of me right now is because I was having a conversation with someone who is, I don't want this to sound the way it could sound when I say it, so that's my disclaimer. But I was having a conversation with someone who is famous, right? And I'm not saying that they're famous so that it makes me seem like I'm someone to know a famous person. That's not the goal. But I'm saying that because the conversation we were having is they were giving me some warnings, and I was just kind of like just listening to them. And so I said, oh, this is something I wanted to talk about for a while. And it just so happens that I'm having this conversation with someone of notoriety. So I want to have that conversation on the podcast. So I had to give the disclaimer because it could feel like that I'm like, oh, I know famous people. I'm so this. And it's like, listen, that's not me. I'm not about that life. But it could definitely seem that way. Okay, so let's get into it. So when I think about someone that is well known, there are going to be people that absolutely love them. Like they love every single thing about this person, the good and not so good. They're like, I am with them no matter what, right? That's like people who are down for Nicki Minaj. Like, I'm down for her no matter what. I'm down for Taylor. I'm down for Beyonce. I'm down for George Clooney. I'm down for Idris Elba. Like, no matter what, I am for 10 toes down, And I get that, right? But then there's also going to be the people who, no matter what good a person does, no matter what a bad person does or whatever, this person is always going to be unlikable to them, no matter what's going on, right? But also, there is this, curiosity of once you become aware of someone and the more that they become known or well known or what have you, there becomes this conscious and sometimes unconscious curiosity about a person's life and all the inner workings of a person's life. For example, it happened to me just a day ago. I was on social media. Sorry, I'm yawning. I was on social media and a video popped up of Michael J. Fox, Back to the Future guy, and his wife. And they were on the red carpet, and the caption on the text on screen said, "This is what unconditional love looks like." Because we all know that Michael J. Fox has a condition. Let me pull up really quickly what his condition is. Let me see. Michael. Trying to get the Google. Okay. Michael J. Fox condition. Okay. Because I can't remember what it's called. and I don't want to misdiagnose Parkinson's. Okay. So we know that Michael J. Fox has a medical condition and it's called Parkinson's. Okay. And there's lots of different things that go along with Parkinson's. Okay. So let me just pull up what is Parkinson's, just that way we can just talk about that really quickly. Not that this show was not about that at all, but I'll just mention it. So Parkinson's is a chronic long-term neurodegenerative disease that affects the central nervous system and motor system. It's caused by the weakening, damage, and death of nerve cells in the brain, particularly in the substantia nigra, in an area that produces dopamine. PD worsens over time. There is no cure, but medications and therapies can reduce symptoms. Okay. So the way that we see Michael J. Fox is sometimes he has a hard time, like, what's the worst way to put it? It's like he is moving, like his body is moving even when he doesn't want it to. Okay. That's like the best way I can describe it, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it. And I don't want to even pretend like I can explain that. And so then here is his wife. They're both on the red carpet and his body is moving even though he doesn't want it to. And she is standing there looking at the camera, smiling. And so for me, when I saw them on the red carpet, I knew he had a medical condition. I knew that he was married. But for me, what happened, I said to myself, oh, who is Michael J. Fox's wife? So I immediately went to Google and I typed in, who is Michael J. Fox's wife? And then she popped up and what have you, right? No big deal. But, when you go to Google a person's one thing, what's going to happen is that Google is going to show you what are all the things people are Googling. What are all the things that people want to know about this person or whatever, right? So the person I was talking to was telling me how people are Googling, why she went through divorce. They're Googling medical conditions and all these different things or whatever. And, it never really hit me that people were doing that with her, but I'm like, oh, I can see that because in their eyes, she's famous and people are curious about her life or whatever, right? Because I too do that to other people. I'm like, I'm curious, so I will go and Google that person's life to know about different things. But the area where I feel like is very not so good is when we begin to scrutinize somebody's life, right? So, for example, I remember, so I'll give you an example. May not be the best example, but I'll give you one. So I remember when, what year was it? 2016, I think it was, when Donald Trump at the time, he's former President Trump now, but Donald Trump at the time was running for office and then he won. And immediately the internet just went crazy about Melania, right? And they were posting her nudes because she's a model or an ex-model, what have you, whatever you would label it, model or ex. And there were photos of her nude. And the internet was posting these photos of her. And I just kind of had this thought process of, why are we doing that? Like, what does her now being the first lady have to do with, what she did in the past? And people were like, well, she never should have posted them. So now we get to whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's a very interesting take that is what we get to do because of that. I think about someone like, and I'm just using random examples. I think of someone like Oprah, right? Where Oprah is extremely successful in her own right. And people are often like going after her about being so close to Gayle, her being not having any kids, and her not being married to Stedman or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting that we feel like it's our business to know why she's not married, why she doesn't have kids, why her and Gayle both are not married. Like, people feel like it's our right to know that, I feel like people have this expectation that Kim Kardashian is obligated to tell us exactly how she feels about her ex-husband Kanye and all this stuff. And I am like, this is really interesting that we are in this space and time where we feel like because these people are well known and they're famous and they post things on the internet and they got massive followings, that these people should expect to just be torn apart, their lives completely investigated, and that everything about them needs to be shared with us. And I think that that is wild, that that is where we live as people. And I don't think that that should be the case. You know, it's like, I am not famous, but I am a social media person. I create content, I post online. And it would be wild to me if people expect to know why I haven't remarried yet, why I don't have kids yet, why I literally got divorced, what's my ex-husband's name, and all this stuff. That would be wild to me, that would be people's expectations on, and then I have to tell everything that I'm thinking and feeling. Like, that's, for me, I just feel like that's wild about a person's personal life, you know? And sometimes people say, well, they tell us everything else, they should be telling us this. And I'm like, no, I think that a person gets to pick and choose what they want to share with the world. If they want to share everything, great. If they were sharing everything and now they're not, great. I think that these people get this amazing opportunity to be whoever they want to be, share what they want to share or not share, you know? And I just think that we are living in quite the interesting society that says today that this is how it's supposed to be. And before I shot this episode, I haven't congested, but I did an Instagram story and I was asking, do you think that celebrities deserve to be scrutinized publicly? And I had a large amount of people say yes. And I was very surprised that they said yes. Now, I had a large group of people that said no. But with the amount of people that said yes, I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder why they feel that way. I don't know the answer. And I wish I would have asked why they feel that way. And then I can have more to share with you guys today. But to me, when I saw that, I said, I think that what is happening is that we are not seeing influential, famous people as human beings, that we're seeing them like objects in some type of way, you know, and not as real human people. Because I think that if we were seeing people as real human beings, we would have more empathy, more compassion. We would expect more privacy from them. We would give them more privacy and all the things. That's like, it reminds me of Princess Kate. Like, we weren't seeing her for quite some time, and they're in such a public eye that people were like, why are they hiding Princess Kate? What is going on? Why isn't she this? Why isn't she that? And all this stuff. And there's all the speculations about what was going on, and I don't really know. But then at some point in time, she comes out and says that she's got cancer. And, you know, people were just in shock and awe, and then being like, oh, shoot, you know, here we are doing all this stuff. And this woman is at home dealing with cancer. And I'm like, how much harder did the people make her life in that time frame when everybody was like pressing for her to come, just all this stuff, you know, it's already traumatic and hard and just so much, you know, when it comes to that. But to have this like demand on show up, tell us what's going on, is just even, I can't even how hard that must have been for her. I mean, I can't even imagine how hard that must have been for her to be going through that, you know? And so I wanted to record this because I I am a person that I believe that we all, I don't know, I just believe that we all need to become more aware of one another. I think we all need to become more aware of ourselves. Um, because until we are aware of ourselves, our expectations or whatever, or how we are seeing people, then it's going to be hard to let people be humans, and it's going to be hard to be compassionate and empathetic to people. And of course, it's going to be harder to be vulnerable with people so that you can get the empathy and compassion that you need. You know, like sometimes, and I'm not even famous, but sometimes I'll connect with people that I've, you know, they've seen me on social media or whatever, and we'll connect, and I'll just watch people just kind of dump on me and dump on me and dump on me and not really go, hey, this is a human. This is not my coach. This is not my therapist. This is like a human. And maybe I should ask this human being how they're feeling or whatever's going on. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll see people at church and, you know, like maybe because you're on the prayer team or whatever, that now you are a supreme being who is not having their own problems, who doesn't need their own support, comfort, prayer, or whatever. And a person just comes just to get something from you versus to actually offer something to you, you know? And I think that that is something that I experience on my little low level. And then I'm watching it with celebrities of here's this expectation that you're supposed to be perfect at all times. Your life is supposed to be spotless. You're never supposed to have an attitude, never have a bad day. You're always supposed to be wearing women heels and fitted clothing and always the perfect size, always having makeup on, always have a smile on your face, always being welcoming, always like wanting you to take their photo. Talking about celebrities, you know? And I just don't think that that is realistic. You know, like I remember when Addison Rae, the TikToker, when her parents were going through a public divorce. And I remember I watched her being like a photographer, videographer, whatever, was like shooting her, and she was trying to get into her car, and she was rushing to get into her car. And she just looked back and said, thank you so much, because someone had said a kind word to her versus rushing her to find out how she feels about her parents getting divorced and all this stuff. And it was like, I was just reminded that this is just a young girl who, she didn't ask for this. She didn't ask for what was happening with her parents to now be her problem. And everywhere she goes, she is supposed to speak up and answer for them. You know what I mean? And I was just like, man, this is really tough, you know? And then to see like Dixie and Charlie, them dealing with like all the fame. And then I believe Dixie is dealing with some mental health stuff. And I think Charlie was dealing with some mental health stuff as well. And then to just watch them be picked apart in all these different ways, it's just like, man, it's gotta be really tough. And I wanted to share this with you because if you have people that you have seen on the internet or even in person, and you have this expectation that they're supposed to be perfect and they're supposed to tell you everything and they're supposed to share everything with the world or whatever it is, then it's really time to reevaluate that, because that is not fair to a person. You know, like we can expect that from a movie to give us certain things, a computer to give us certain things, but we should not be putting that or expecting that on human people, because these are real people with real emotions, real problems, real life circumstances. And while we may think that it's entertaining to know all these different things, these are still real people, and we need to respect that and have empathy and compassion for these real people. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This is a different one from previous times of the last couple of years. But let me know, what are your thoughts on this? If you enjoyed it, please rate and write a review. I would love to read that review. And if you think that your friends should listen to this, please do a screenshot of the episode, post it on Instagram stories, and tag me. Thanks for listening to the Kia Kelly podcast. I'm always honored and thankful each time you choose to download and listen to an episode of this podcast, but also when you choose to share it with a friend. Because one of the things that I know is that when I was building my business, it was so important for me to be surrounded by like-minded people. And so when you choose to share our content with your friends, it allows them to be in our space as well, where we can nurture and mentor them as well. And we can just make some new friends. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, I would appreciate it so very much. But in addition to that, if you would do us a huge favor by writing a review and giving us 5 stars, it's going to tell Spotify, iTunes, and all the places that people are enjoying this podcast and that they should share it with more people. And so please share, please write a review, and thank you so much for listening.